Thank you. It's nice to hear the drumming in the school. I really appreciate you taking the time to come join us. So this morning, students, we've talked about this before, is we have a very special assembly today. It's a film premiere to honor local history, to honor the work our students have done last summer, and for all of us to enjoy it. Before we begin, I would just remind students to please turn off your phones and your devices that you may have on you. We don't want to hear them beeping. I'd like to welcome all of our guests from around the territories and the other communities. It's also nice to have you with us. I will acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Kw'eh, and our guests come from Yakuche, Takla, Glaston, and Bitchi nations as well. So welcome to all of those people. Just some housekeeping things before we begin. Our event today is being live streamed, so thank you to Mr. V and his team who have put that together for us. There is also a live stream chat, so sometimes throughout the ceremony today, you will see Mr. V on his phone answering questions. And at the end, we'll have a question and answer period. So to begin with, I would like to invite Leona Prince to come forward. She is our Education Director for First Nations Education with School District 91. Leona.
Hari Leona Prince Satni. Some of you have a Lucille Habazagam Sat Snip Glass Step Joyce Prince Gla Gordon Barfoot Habatni. I'm nervous. Sakai Tani Ledni Kobe Ella Gla Eva Habatni Mamalia Zisli Sky Sean Abraham. I usually know what's on the side. So I did an introduction, and clearly that's not Dakat or the Nak'azi dialect, that's Naduden. I am from here, and when we introduce ourselves in that way, and you hear people introduce themselves, it's not to state who they are, but where they come from. And by doing that, you honor all of the ancestors in the room and the people that made it possible for you to be here today. And so in honoring my parents, the clan that I sit with, the Beaver clan, and my father's clan, Frog, I'm acknowledging all those people that made it possible for us to all sit here today as well. We all come from great ancestors. Each one of you is the result of those relationships and that history. I am married into the Lake Abbey Nation out of Den. I've been a member since I was 13. I didn't get married at 13, but I transferred there. I was born here and started my life here in Nak'azi on the reserve over there, just a short shot away there. My family is from here, and that's why I'm a Prince. And so it's always good to come back home and visit and to bring programming for everyone here. That's a little bit about myself, so you know who's in front of you, and that's always important. I'm here to explain how this project came to be. And it was interesting because we're at a time in education where we're trying to bring in diverse perspectives and specifically Indigenous perspectives into the classroom. This school, without a doubt, has an excellent track record of doing that work. There are so many projects that incorporate those perspectives and highlight the history and the land and the people of this area. And this is just one of many projects that I'm fortunate enough to be a part of. This work was led by educators and by students, and that's incredibly important. We have three of our students up here. We have Sloan, JT, and Aaron. Marissa, of course, graduated and is doing a biology exam today, or she would love to be here. So she's off to post-sec. They were an integral part of this process, and what you see on the screen wouldn't have been possible without the background work that was done by these students and through the support of Chunto Education Society. This project was a collaboration between Chunto, Nagasley, and also School District 91. And so we also have incredible educators in our system, and I'm very fortunate to have colleagues who, when asked, take up the call to action to do this really important work. And so Mr. V and Carla took the lead on this project and ran with it. They did such amazing work. I would be remiss not to talk about, but Mike and his team will introduce themselves by video, but I really want to thank them for the care that they took in telling our story. This is the first in a series of stories throughout territories. Within School District 91, there are 14 First Nations that we serve, and that's a lot of stories. And so what I hope comes into the room is all of these stories, and as you're watching this production, this beautiful, well-done production, honoring the legacy of Kw'eh, that you think of your own stories and your own family's connection to these lands and how you came to be here. Masai.
Thank you, Leon. Now I believe we're going to look at the filming people who put this together from LiveIt Earth. They were going to be with us today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Irvin, and it's an absolute pleasure.
Mike was going to be with us here today, but the snowstorm in Vancouver stopped his flight, so he couldn't make it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Irvin, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you virtually today. I wish I could be with you in person, but that's as it goes. I would really like to thank everyone who participated in the creation of this program and the importance of that collaboration, because without it, this never would have been possible. And really, programs like Chief Kw'eh, they're really important because this is a type of representation which we are missing in education, and it's sorely needed. So I hope you all really enjoy this program, and thank you so much for helping bring it to life. The following is a historical program about the great Chief Kw'eh and is told from Indigenous knowledge holders based on oral histories. Disclaimer: one story relates to the death of an Indigenous man at the hands of the Fur Trade Company and how Chief Kw'eh responded to the situation. Hi everyone, I'm your host, Mike Irvin, and I'm very excited to be with you today for another LiveIt show. Today, we've been invited by Carla Martin to learn about the great Chief Kw'eh. Let's go find her. Hi Carla, how are you today?
Hey Mike, I'm good. How about you?
Not too bad, thank you. Well, thanks so much for having us here today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here?
Yeah, my name is Carla Martin, and I sit in the Lasili clan. And today we are here on the unceded traditional territory of Nakazi-Waden. We are also surrounded by the communities of Yekuche, Benche, Mazden, and Takwa First Nations, and of course, the birthplace of Kw'eh.
Oh, Chief Kw'eh. Could you tell me a little bit more about Chief Kw'eh and why is he so important for your community?
The person that you need to go and speak with about Chief Kw'eh is an elder and friend and mentor, Lillian Sam. You should go and talk to her and Dennis and come right back.
I will go and do that then.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
We'll
you're
see you soon.
welcome.
Birchingham Secondary School 나왔니? 자네 다까지고 전부 필요 없어서 아마슈 잡아봤었어. 너 자다 인내 잡혔다지 따르셈 예쿠체 인체 아과 아웨자 마시노다스.
Hi, Lillian. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's truly an honor.
Lillian, I think you were telling me too that, are you the great-granddaughter?
Yeah,
Chief Kw'eh?
yeah.
Okay, and what can you share with us about Chief Kw'eh's life?
He was a big man. He lived in a bush where there was woods.
What was he hunting?
There's all kinds of fish. The deer,
Okay.
it was big ones and not little ones. There were big ones a long time ago.
Okay.
There was so much sun all over the time. Really lots of sun. There's no sun now, just sleeping. Came up. The name was the house. He was the king. They called him king.
So who called Chief Kw'eh king?
Forages. He takes care of them. He talks to them about everything. About everything. You are so smart. Just really smart.
I'm just really grateful and honored that you were able to come here and join us today and
Yeah.
share with us. So thank you.
Yeah.
Dennis is a knowledge holder on the life of Chief Kw'eh. He's waiting for us at the National Bun School. Let's go. Hi, Dennis.
Hi, Mike.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Carla actually sent me your way to learn a little bit more about Chief Kw'eh, or is it Chief Kw'eh?
So his real name is Chief Kw'eh, but it was the fur traders anglicized it to Kw'eh.
Would you be able to tell us a little bit about what life was like when Chief Kw'eh was younger?
He grew up with stories of warfare, tribal warfare, and they're survivors. You know, they lived for thousands of years in this country. It was harsh winters, but you know, they thrived.
Would he move around a lot, or was he always around this area?
They moved quite a bit for the salmon fishing, so they would move there in the salmon season. Other seasons, you know, they would go beaver hunting from here, like hundreds of miles. They'd be traveling around and they'd go get caribou from the mountains, all the different lakes with different fish. It was seasonal rounds, they were always moving around.
So people weren't always in one location for very long?
They had it was a huge territory, and you know, also there was a lot of networking between different villages, and in those days it was traditional governance was what they called batlats, which is a potlatch system. That's how they governed everything, and that's how they kept track of everything. And
Cedar in grade 3 wants to know, why did Chief Kw'eh become the chief?
so they knew Chief Kw'eh was a provider. He took care of the people, and you know, also he listened carefully to the elders. When he proved himself, they made him a chief. He went around to different feasts, and west of here, at a feast, they honored him with a dagger that had been traded on the coast and got traded inland. And that large dagger became quite prominent in his story.
So you definitely won the respect of many people.
Yes. Whereas grave marker, it says Deneza Cho, and that means a big chief, but not the chief as we think of today, but you know, he was very connected to the territory, the land. When they say Deneza, that's the leader of the clan, and he was a leader of the Tamasheed clan, which is the Beaver clan.
And the other clan was Frog Clan, which is Lesilium. And those were the two main clans at the time of Chief Kw'eh's time.
So the two clans you just mentioned, are those them up here right behind us?
On that end, you have the Samashu, which is the Beaver clan. That was a main clan. The Frog clan is Lesilium, and that was another big clan. And then later in more modern times, because of marrying people from away but not too far away, that's how the Bear clan, Lojabu, and the Kw'eh, which is the Caribou clan. The Caribou clan is from the north, and the Lojabu clan is from the west of here.
So they were connected through marriages and family relationships in each of these clans.
And yes, and that brings me to a point of Chief Kw'eh is known to have 5 wives. He was so well respected that people wanted to be connected to him. And in those days, the land was passed down to the women. So if you were connected, you would be able to live and work on their territory. And that's how Chief Kw'eh expanded his hunting territories.
Was there also any challenges to Chief Kw'eh throughout his period as chief?
Well, there's always the thing of other tribes' attacks, and they weren't big wars like we see today, but that was always a threat. And then early 1800, the fur traders moved in. The fur traders needed salmon to live, and they wanted furs to trade. That was their profit, where they got their profits from. So Chief Kw'eh had to make sure that ran smoothly and took care of everything, and plus provide for his people.
When fur traders actually came first to the area, how was that interaction?
The fur traders came up the river's like the highway, so that, people knew they were coming. So they sent runners, ahead of them, and they told these people would be coming. At the time, because of this threat of war with tribes and being attacked, they didn't have the village at the river mouth. They had the village further in the lake. So when the fur traders came up, they were directed to go to the place which is called Sauche now, and that's where they interacted. That's where they first met. The fur traders, they had fiddles and things. They sang, and Chief Kw'eh and his people, they drummed. They welcomed that, and that's when the trading started to happen.
Our recaps for this section are: Dakiv people moved and traveled a lot with the seasons. Chief Kw'eh was a nobleman who provided for his people. Chief Kw'eh was from the Samatsu clan and helped bring peace between the clans. So during even that first interaction too, when the fur traders first came here, they started to establish a bit of a settlement, I believe, right? And how did that interaction work within the community and the people that were here?
I think the fur traders thought that they were running the fur trade, but in actual fact, if you think of the sophistication, I think Chief Kw'eh was the one who ran the fur trade. So he allowed them to build a fort. But Chief Kw'eh and his people, they welcomed that because they wanted the goods of pots, guns, knives, cloth, different things, that made life a little easier.
How did the trading work here between the fur traders and the people?
So in this country, it's a lot of fur-bearing animals, and people already were skilled at trapping, but they used the furs for clothing and for food, and the furs were a big part of that trade. But there's also, salmon was a huge part of that trade, because fur traders needed to feed the people and also to feed the dogs, and dogs was a huge transportation in those days. So one of the main items of trade was salmon. some of the fur traders decided that they would set their own nets, and they got into huge trouble. The salmon was controlled by the Dakat people. So, yeah, it was a huge trade item.
So it's kind of whatever you almost had in some ways, different things held value, and they would exchange and come up with a common kind of understanding of what that object or item might be valued as.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of excitement and this new relationship, you know.
Did that relationship change over time?
Yeah, I think it changed quite a bit because on one side, the fur trader side, it was a business. It was like a company. They were working for a company and they wanted to make profits. On the side of the Dakat people, this was always their homeland and their way of life, and it just helped make their life a little simpler. But at the same time, there were negative effects of that trade, you know, a different point of view, a different way of looking at things. On the side of the Dakat people, your wealth was what you could give away. On the side of the fur traders, what you could gather and collect. So, you know, two different worldviews. When Kw'eh was alive, he was in charge. Not he was in charge, but the Dakat people were in charge. And they were unified. When Kw'eh passed away, the missionaries, the fur trade people, you know, they started to divide the people, especially with the missionaries, because of, you know, they started to impose their worldview onto the Dakat people.
Were there any conflicts between Kw'eh and the fur traders?
So they had different ideas about who's in charge and how things were to run. In one instance, one of the Dakat people who was down in Slately, which is Prince George, and something happened, there was an incident happened. And so the man came up here, and James Douglas and his people, James Douglas was the head of the Hudson's Bay, they went to arrest this man and they beat him to death. So when Kw'eh was out hunting, and when they came back, Kw'eh was really upset about this. So him and his men, they went to the fort and they overtook the fort. He had his dagger, and he had his dagger to James Douglas, and you know, he could have harmed him, but he told him, you know, don't touch my people. If you wanted something, you know, I'll deal with it, but you know, you don't have the right to harm our people. And he allowed James Douglas to live, and he let him go. So when he moved to Victoria, he ended up becoming the first governor of British Columbia.
Estimated 5 asks, what did Chief Kw'eh look like?
I'm not sure. There was no cameras back in those days. But, you know, a lot of his descendants, most people, Dakat people, are related to Chief Kw'eh.
I think there's also a coin.
Yeah, there's a coin that depicts Chief Kw'eh. I think it was one of his descendants' face. You know, it shows him with furs and, you know, kind of how they might look.
So we have another kid's question.
Brendan in grade 5 asks, was Chief Kw'eh a nice man?
In my understanding, he was a nice man because, you know, if you think of the way the pot bathlats and the way they did things, and, you know, it was all built on love and respect, you know, taking care of each other, sharing, and I think he provided for a lot of people, and he took care of a lot of people, and he shared even with the fur traders. There are times when he could have acted out in anger, but he used diplomacy.
Our recaps for this section are: salmon were also an important part of the trade relationship. Chief Kw'eh held batlats built on love, respect, and taking care of each other. And the Dakat people demonstrated their wealth through giving.
Well, thank you, Dennis, for sharing so much with me and with everybody here today. We really appreciate it and feel incredibly honored. I think I have what I need here for now, and I'm going to go back and have another conversation with Carla.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
And understand that.
the most incredible conversations with Lillian and Dennis earlier today. Thank you so much for passing me their way. What are you doing?
Oh, I've just finished smudging here.
You're smudging?
Yeah.
Why were you smudging?
It's just a traditional way of just doing a nice cleanse with the eyes that I see with, the ears that I hear with, and the mouth that I speak with, and all of my doings with my hands and my feet. And it just prepares me for the day. As being an educator and a knowledge holder, it just helps me get through my day, and it allows my ancestors to come and guide me with whatever teachings that I'm passing on.
It's really beautiful. I just had this really great conversation about Chief Kw'eh and his importance to the community, as well as what life was like before Western settlers had arrived to this region, and then trading and how that all worked, and some of the changes that actually happened within the community during that period of time. And you know, here we are, 180 years later, I'm sharing these stories, and a question I have is, why are stories like these so important to share? Why is Chief Kw'eh's story so important to share?
I believe that Chief Kw'eh is a big part of our history here in the traditional territory of Nakazi. This was his birthplace, and I believe that anybody that comes from the roots of Nakazi should know his story and his history and his legacy that he left behind. The knowledge was passed to him from his ancestors. And to be able to hear his story and to learn about who Kw'eh is important to us. It's a sense of our identity and our belonging here in the Nakazi territory.
And you're actually related to Chief Kw'eh, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually the great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Kw'eh.
God, that's amazing. You know, we're talking about the history and the storytelling components, but what is the importance of a knowledge holder within your community?
I believe a knowledge holder is a person.
No, that's not it. I love technology. It's a person.
The following is a historical.
That knowledge, we have to share that knowledge, and that's very important. His history and his legacy that he left behind. The knowledge was passed to him from his ancestors. And to be able to hear his story and to learn about who Kw'eh is important to us. It's a sense of our identity and our belonging here in the Nakazi territory.
And you're actually related to Chief Kw'eh, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm actually the great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Kw'eh.
God, that's amazing. You know, we're talking about the history and the storytelling components, but what is the importance of a knowledge holder within your community?
I believe a knowledge holder is a person that has been taught the knowledge from our elders and our ancestors. And we not only have to keep that knowledge, we have to share that knowledge. And that's very important, is that if you're going to identify as a knowledge holder, is to always pass on. We never keep that in, we share it.
And you are a knowledge holder, correct?
I consider myself a knowledge holder because I've learned a lot from my grandparents and my aunts and uncles.
Something else I really wanted to ask you is, how does Chief Kw'eh influence or inspire you today?
What inspires me about Kw'eh is that the legacy that he has left behind and the greatness that he did for our community. And to be able to learn the stories that came from Kw'eh is that I would like to pass that on to our children and our grandchildren into the future of our children here.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's beautiful.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we have a kid's question.
Brendan in grade 5 asks, did Chief Kw'eh have a big family?
That is a big question, actually. We come from a massive family. What has been compiled here is the descendants of Kw'eh and his family.
That's incredible. So his immediate family was quite large, and then they had many children?
Yes, because Kw'eh had 4 wives.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so all of those descendants, and you're one of the descendants that have come from each of those branches?
Just one of the descendants.
Okay, amazing. And our recaps for this section are, Chief Kw'eh has many descendants. Knowledge holders learn and share important cultural stories.
Chief Kw'eh's legacy is an important part of the Nak'azdli region's identity. I have one last question that I would love to ask. You know, as an educator, for kids who are really interested in learning more about their own history, their own stories, and their own communities, how would they go about doing that?
Great question, Mike. We all have a story, we all have a history. I would definitely connect with an Indigenous educator within your school and with community members within your community as well.
And I hope that we get to come back up and visit you again soon.
Yes, you should come back up this way and for salmon season and come and visit my cousin Leona in the Nato territory.
Okay, incredible.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, we will make sure that we do that.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We had an incredible time. Bye.
Nani Stanla.
I would like to give a big thank you and shout out to the amazing students of Fort St. James High School who helped in the creation of this story, and to Fred Sam for his territorial welcome.
Thank you to especially the students who filmed and put that together during their summer months, and we thank you again. It's wonderful to learn about our local history and how many people are connected to Chief Kw'eh. Like Carla, Miss Martin said in the film, we all have a story, and each one of our stories is important. And it's lovely to learn about other people's stories. Now we're going to turn it over to questions. If people have questions about the production, if they have questions about Chief Kw'eh, and also Mr. V is going to look at the live chat. So maybe we'll start with some of the live chat questions.
Let me just find it. Hold on a second, please. I'm on the wrong one. No, I'm on the right one. Sorry. One of the questions is from Julia, and they want to know how far Chief Kw'eh traveled.
So through my understanding, Chief Kw'eh was traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles. They had a huge territory and they had to provide for a lot of people. So they had to travel around to fish and hunt wherever they needed. And so it was a huge territory, hundreds and hundreds of miles.
Just to add a little bit about that before you snag the mic back from me. Also, they access the grease trails. I'm a nerd for curriculum, and so that's something that would be really interesting because these grease trails connected a lot of the nations and created for trade opportunities, so we get products in here. So not only did he have a great vast fur trade network, but he also had an amazing trade network through these grease trails. We have traditional stories from this area that go down to the Bella Coola region. Ernie George from Saikas First Nation wants to take me on the grease trail that connects this area to Bella Coola, and that's one of his dreams one day. So I imagine Chief Kw'eh and the people of Kw'eh and the people of that time used those grease trails as well to reach even beyond the territories. But this area that our school district sits on is 70,000 square kilometers, just to give you some reference to the vastness of these territories. So.
And she's about to get the microphone right back, because the next question is, this was a display of one project, but there is more projects to come. So can you explain those to us, please?
Okay, so there was some foreshadowing in the video there where Carla said, come and visit Leona, her cousin, in the Nanadan territory. So I live in Burns Lake, on that end of our massive district, and there we're going to talk about the keystone species, sockeye salmon, and the importance to it for all Dakhak, Nanadan, Wet'suwet'en people within these territories here, and explore what salmon means to Indigenous people, not only for food and sustenance and survival, but for that connection and those practices that have lasted for generations. And so a traditional look at our most important species in these territories. Another one that I'm contemplating and an important story that needs to be told is the story of Chenmak, and which well back was the city of the carriers, and a lot of our nations descend from that one area. There was an important war that was connected to those lands, and that is a story that needs to be told. If you look it up, there's actually not a lot of information, but we need to bring that story to life and connect with the knowledge holders who still hold that knowledge and share that knowledge, so it's preserved for future generations, because any of you folks that are from this territory, that's an area where you descend from as well as Chenmak, and so another important story to tell. And we're going to continue telling those important stories throughout this whole region, and it really is up to our nations. I take guidance from them when we're creating these stories. What do you want to hear? What do you want the people to know about who you are? Just an interesting side note. This was the first program that crashed LiveIt's network. So if you were a teacher and you were trying to access this, there was so much interest in this program from around North America that it crashed their site, and that's why we couldn't get in on the day that it first was released. So everyone wanted to know about Kw'eh.
A successful program is a destructive program. That's what we like to hear. The last one, somebody asked me in the hallway the other day, and I thought I'd answer it here. And I'm not going to put these fine people on the spot and make them answer it. So, they asked me, what did the students actually do? So in the credits, you probably saw them doing the clapboard and the timer, but they also did all the sound. They were taught how to do sound with those lavalier mics. They did the filming, they did the lighting, they did the backgrounds. They were integral. They were in every part of it at every time. So they learned a lot about filming on that week. So it was sort of a trial by fire for them. They sort of, hey, how's it going? Here's a camera. This is what you do. But they did a great job, and they really focused in and gave us everything they had. So it's something that we can't thank them enough for.
Thank you. Is there any questions that people in the audience may have? Yes, please.
You have 4 or 5 wives?
5 wives?
4 or 5.
That's a Dennis question.
Yeah, I don't know, I've heard 4 and then I've heard 5. I'm not really sure the number, but like I said, 4 or 5, I mean, it's still an amazing.
Lillian says more than 5.
Just to help, I'm Sarah Sam from Lakalman. Just to help answer the question about how far he traveled, his wives, I heard, were from different communities, so that's why he traveled so much. And he took care of more than one community, and that's why he was so important. That's why he was in Chane, Daneza.
Right, that makes sense.
We just got some more. Actually, there's a classroom over in David Hoy, and they have first question is, what did Chief Kw'eh hunt during the winter time?
So trapping was good in the winter. Furs were great, but also, beaver in the spring, but late winter. But, food was so important back in the day that anytime you got a moose or something, you had to take advantage of that. So, it was moose, caribou, anything that they could hunt, they hunted.
And I have one more. I'm gonna put this in a different term, but they asked, what did they eat on a daily basis? So what was the diet like back then?
It was mostly a protein diet, and that's why carbohydrates are not very great for our people. It was high fat, but animal fats and high protein with some natural vegetables that grew in the territories. And it wasn't a daily basis thing. There wasn't a supermarket you could go to. It really was based on the seasonal rounds and what you were harvesting at that time, and then preparing for your winter stores. And so it really followed the seasons, and you can still see people. This is not something that's practiced. Everything that we're talking about is still practiced today. That's very important for us to know. Out berry picking and hunting, and your families may be engaged in those seasonal rounds as well. Seasonal rounds are incredibly important for all of us, especially because we live in these beautiful territories and interact with nature on a regular basis. It would be the same in current context. What you harvest from the land now is what you eat throughout the year and what you store. And so if your family is into fishing and canning and freezing, it's very similar to that, except it was very high nutrient, rich protein diets. One of the more interesting things is that if you ever go into the forest and you see these culturally modified trees, they kind of have this diamond shape and they're grown inward. That's where pine cambium was harvested. And so people thought that because we would harvest pine cambium that we were starving, but actually that's very rich in the vitamins that we needed. And so it was good for sustenance. It actually tastes kind of sweet and good. I tried pine cambium, and then it actually acted as a medicine, a natural medicine to chunyu, so a tree medicine as well.
That was a thank you to Mr. Mulroy's class in grade 6, 7, David White. That was a couple questions from them. So.
Wonderful, thank you. I wonder if I could, before we conclude, Mark, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to see how many in this group can identify themselves as being a descendant from Chief Kw'eh by standing up.
If you think you're a descendant or you know you're a descendant of Chief Kw'eh, Mark has asked you to stand up. I'm not a descendant, I'm just still standing. And thank you. It's quite a few people in the building.
Because of that missing wife.
Dennis said because of the missing wife, there might be more of us who are connected. Before I conclude, can I ask our drummers to do another piece for us? Put them on the spot.
to do a prayer song. It's coming from Stalacro, from Elder Zal Louis, and it's just, inviting those loved ones that passed on to be with us. There's a lot of descendants, and growing up with my grandmother, you heard a lot of stories. Wow, that's what I understand it as. And traveling to many different communities, and when I moved with my grandmother, that's all I hung out with the elders, and to hear those teachings, and when I go out and about, I tell people really I know nothing, because there's so much knowledge that's out there. And looking at the video with what Carla was saying is that that knowledge is freely given. And it's so important to pass that down. So I'm just going to share this. It's basically a prayer song.
Thank you, James. So that concludes our ceremony this morning. I would like to invite everybody in the room today to join us for a feast in the other gym. Carla and her team have been working very hard and been cooking and for the last couple of days. So once you left here, please head to the other gym. I'm not sure exactly when it's ready. Oh, Leona wants to talk again. Sorry, Leona.
Yeah, I think when you start thanking people, you kind of forget, because it's a big list of gratitude that you have on these occasions. And we talked a lot about knowledge holders and elders, and we're very fortunate today to have Lillian Sam right here. She has a tremendous, and holds and carries and shares a tremendous amount of knowledge about Chief Kw'eh. And it's just an honor to have her here present and sharing the day with us. What she shared is so special, and the care that they took with the LiveIt team and recording her and capturing her voice and sharing her knowledge was incredible. So I think I'd be remiss not to say that she made it out here today and is a supporter of education. She's a believer and has always carried the torch of knowledge within the Naka'ezli territory, and is one of the matriarchs of our community. So can we please give her a massive round of applause.
Thank you very much, Leona.